Views and opinions expressed in this production are those of the individual and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Shooters Nation or our sponsors. Information provided on this show is not a replacement for legal counsel or professional training. Listener and viewer discretion is advised. This is especially true on live shows.
Welcome to the Shooters Nation podcast, the talk show for you, the armed citizen. Join us as we discuss guns and gear, training, mindset and knowledge, industry news and buzz, and of course, the firearms culture. Be sure to join us after the show at shootersnation.com and become part of the Shooters Nation.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Shooters Nation podcast. I'm your host, David Yancey, and this is episode number 12. Co-hosting with me tonight is Mark Lancaster in the great state of New Hampshire. Mark, how's it going, man?
12 already.
It's hard to believe, isn't it? Yeah, I guess, I'm telling myself that good things come in dozens. So we've made it this far, even though the last episode tried everything it could to kill me. But we'll talk about that in a minute. I want to talk about good things. Well, how was this week for you, man? Did you get a chance to get outside and run that new Hudson H9?
I did. I put a few rounds through the Hudson. I put a lot more rounds through the Angstead 9mm AR suppressed.
Which one of those do you like the most, man? I'm afraid to ask.
They serve very different purposes, so it's really hard to pick one. I can tell you that the flattest shooting 9mm handgun I've ever shot out of the box is the Hudson.
That's what everybody says. It really
doesn't move.
It doesn't.
I mean, granted, it's heavy. It's a heavy gun. You know, it's 9mm, 1911 heavy.
Okay.
But a 15+1 striker fired 9mm that just doesn't move. You put the front dot on the target, and you just, as fast as you can pull the trigger. I had a tight group, tightest group I ever shot. First time out of a pistol. Is
it going to sway you? Are you going to start carrying it?
No.
Okay. All right.
It's not a Glock.
It's not a Glock.
It's not proven. It's not a Glock. It's not proven. Yeah. I mean, great gun. Love it. Probably won't leave the safe. Probably won't leave forever. It'll probably leave the safe for range trips, but
sure.
Probably won't ever be a carry gun. No.
Well, I guess, is there anything in it that let me back up. There's a lot of stuff about it that's very unconventional, and you notice those things straight away. The way that it's got the recoil assembly below, almost in line with the trigger guard and so forth. But is there anything about it that you can look at and immediately identify as saying this is going to be a problem long term?
Other than weight, no. I haven't completely taken it apart yet, so that could very well be challenging. But who knows what that's going to involve? And I'm the type of guy that you get something new, and one of the first things you do is you tear it all apart, right? See how it works, see why it works the way it does,
right?
And clean it real well. Soak it up with some breakthrough clean, and some solvents, and get a little oil on the good parts, and polish some parts that need polishing, and put it back together. But I'm a little intimidated just because it is a completely rare animal as far as the firearms industry is concerned. And it's so new. There isn't a lot of YouTube stuff that I've seen floating around yet showing how to do this. So that's the only thing, the weight and the unknown on tearing it down. Those are the only two things I'm concerned about so far. Got some VZ grips on the way. They'll be here tomorrow, so I'm pretty excited for those. Give me a little bit more traction in the grip. The front strap's great. The back strap's good. The side panels are smooth, slick.
Oh, really?
So,
I mean, they're like Lennon micarta or something, aren't they? Or Am I wrong?
I think it's a G10.
Okay.
I think it's a G10, but they're just smooth.
Okay.
So VZ grips, I ordered they had a name like Raptor or something. So I'm sure they'll chew up my hands nice, like I like it. So
yeah, that's awesome. Now I'm looking forward to hearing how that works out for you long term. I really would like to know how other people that you let shoot it respond to it. Next time you take it to the range, if it seems like one of those guns that you couldn't take to the range without everybody else wanting to shoot it. So that'd be exciting.
And the day I took it to the range, there was actually a class at the bay next to me shooting, and a couple of the guys took it and put a mag through it, and they were like, "Yep, that's flat."
Yeah. Yeah.
So everybody was in agreement. But what really sold it for me, there's a Practically Tactical and Steve Fisher video on it. And they did like 15 round mag dumps. And you can just see Steve holding the gun, and the gun's just not moving. The slide is reciprocating, but the gun's not moving. It's just like he couldn't pull the trigger faster, and the gun just wasn't moving. I was just like, okay, I need to shoot one of these because this looks awesome.
I saw
it was everything it cracked up to be.
Well, I saw he did one, and it was a very rough video with his cell phone, and it was like the day that he bought his Hudson H9. He had a stack of a variety of ammo, plus P, et cetera, and it ate everything he fed it. And most of the video was just him unintelligibly laughing his butt off as he shot the gun, which was a great sign.
Yeah, just an impressed laugh, like I can't believe this thing is doing this type of laugh. Yeah. It's great. I'm really happy with it. It's one of those guns where you want to put in more shooters' hands.
Right. Well, it's nice when technology works, which is a great segue into how terrible technology was last week for us. So, I mean, when I went back and put together the podcast for last week, I just shook my head in sadness more often than not as I listened to it. It was comical. So I don't know. I decided that tonight I wasn't going to do a live stream video. I am recording video of you and I right now chatting with each other, which is, I'm sure that's going to be riveting for anybody that watches it. But I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it, man. I've changed up too much stuff in the recording studio here over the past few days. I didn't tempt fate. So there you go. Today's
a new day.
I don't trust technology.
We got it.
Yeah. Right. Well, so tonight, everybody, we're joined by Mr. Bob Allen from Royal Range Firearms Training Center here in Nashville, Tennessee. Bob, you've patiently waited while Mark and I fawned over his Hudson H9. Oh, hello and welcome to the show.
Hi, David. Thanks. Hey, Mark.
We are very glad to have you here. So I just want to skip right into this thing. Briefly, could you tell us who you are and what you do over at Royal Range?
Yeah, sure. So for around 35 years or so, I was a police officer here in the city. And for 20 plus of that, I worked at the training division, teaching our police officers here in the city, new ones and veterans, about use of force, everything really from talking to people to shooting at them. So we had the whole use of force continuum that we taught. And then in 2015, I left there and was kind of about a week looking for a job and got hired at this place I work now. It's called Royal Range it's on the west side of Nashville in Bellevue. And it's really it's an indoor gun range, but we pride ourselves by saying we're really a training center, not just really a gun range. And I've been there, I think, almost 3 years now.
I have been there a couple times, and it is an amazing facility, and it's actually really unique. I didn't want to steal your thunder by describing it, but I would like for you to tell the listeners and Mark a little bit about the range's history and how large it is, et cetera. Because I just, and frankly, I'll say right real quick, if you ever come through Nashville, you owe it to yourself to stop there. And Bob, I'll let you tell them why.
Okay, thanks. So as a kid growing up in Nashville, I've been here all my life, and I used to go to movies at the place where I work now. So I used to be an old movie theater. Went there as a kid and then a teenager. And then in 2010, here in Nashville, we had a really giant flood. They call it the 100-year flood. And Dad's 92, and he said, I've never seen one like that. So I believe that 100-year flood theory. But it flooded a whole lot of things in Nashville, and the theater being one of those. And again, it happened in 2010. Well, from 10 to 15, early 15, nobody had really done anything with the building. It just sat idle, and really about the only thing in it were homeless people that kind of stayed there because it's a really big building. Then when I left the PD and was kind of milling around for about a week, a gentleman come to me and said, hey, I'm thinking about opening up a range in that place. I want to build a range inside that old movie theater. And we talked for a few minutes, and I think the next time we met, he hired me, and then we all started working on it and turned it into, actually, I think we're the biggest indoor facility in the South currently.
It's amazing. When it was a movie theater, do you remember how many different projection rooms or how many theater rooms it had? I can't. Is it like a 10 or a 12 or something like that? Or
I want to say 10.
Okay.
I think 10, and obviously a lot of those movie bays where I used to go sit as a kid and watch movies now are shooting bays, which is kind of neat.
It is, and I remember when I was out there a while back speaking with one of your coworkers. He took me on a tour of the place, and for our listeners, I just want you to imagine a movie plex or a large cinema that has 10 or 12 theater rooms in it, and what would have been the lobby is now mostly I guess you could call it a lobby, but it's a retail storefront for you all. And it has, of course, the firearms and the gear and I think you all even sell, or at least at one point you were selling coffee, that's roasted by veterans and things like that. And it's just a really cool place. You walk in and it just kind of takes your breath away. That like, wow, I would have had no idea that this was all in here. But the thing that I thought was really cool about the firing bays that you all had, not only do you have the traditional, I guess what you would consider kind of a 2-dimensional range where they're running on tracks back and forth, but I think y'all had a room that was set up like that, but you had roll-up garage doors where you could bring vehicles into it and teach people how to shoot from within a vehicle. Am I right?
Yeah, correct, David. And I can, if you want, I'll kind of give the description of the building, maybe so people can kind of get an idea of it. That's
absolutely. Cool. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, so when you walk in the door where I used to get a Coke and popcorn to go to the movie, now it's where all the guns and gear, flashlights, holsters, ammo, and all those kind of things are. And it's I can't remember the size of the retail center. I want to say 3,000 or 4,000 square feet. So when you walk past that, actually the first room you see on the left is what we call our tactical bay. It has turn-in targets like we used in police qualifications, so that you couldn't shoot past the time limits. Targets with edge, so you couldn't do that. We also have a lateral moving target left to right, and in that particular bay, which is about 20 yards deep, there's a garage door that actually the construction crew had to support the wall really well, so that ballistic door would not tear the wall down. But it's big enough door and the roof is tall enough. We pull in SUVs and cars to do vehicle tactics for, like defending against carjacking, or like I've taught police classes there on, unfortunately so many of our officers getting shot around the country in their vehicle on just how to, fight back about that. So as you go down the left side of the building, next one is a pistol bay, where mainly we do our handgun permit classes if it's not a big class. And it's about 15 yards deep. Then a little further on down the aisle is we had an archery bay, but as we started realizing everybody in Tennessee has a yard, so that kind of went away, and we're making it our shipping and receiving place. The next little room down the hall is actually a 1,500 square foot, 2-story home we built inside of one of the little movie bays. And what that's for is to, to teach people about defending their home, or teach police officers how to do room searches or things like that. And we do a lot of our simunition, force-on-force training in that particular room, and also, church training and things like that. Then we have 2 classrooms. One is really a classroom, and we kept a movie theater theme that the seats go from at the back of it's just like a movie theater seating. It's high to low. And there's a big movie screen up on the wall. It's HD, and that's where we do most of our classroom instruction.
That is phenomenal.
It's really the only thing that has kind of kept that movie theater theme, but it's neat to walk in there and see that and sit in it.
Yeah.
It brings back old memories. And the last one on the left side is just a big event room where we have a lot of bachelor parties that come to us from the north, from everywhere, from Canada, New York, Jersey, Chicago. They'll come down and kind of hang out, and then they'll go shoot machine guns in our 50 cal. And that's where they all gather, obviously before they go drinking. Then on the other side of the whole building, the whole right side of the building is our 60-yard indoor rifle range that'll actually is ballistic to a 50 cal, which we rent out there at the range a lot. And then one more little room, and I think that's the building description, is just to the right of that, we have 2 full-time gunsmiths. One of them worked at the police department with me for 25 years. where he was our gunsmith and worked on a lot of our weapons that we used in our old job. So besides that, about a 3-acre or a 4-acre facility around it, big parking lot. I think that's it.
Well, and that it's really easily accessible off the interstate, like you would expect a movie theater to be. And it's just, I can visualize it as you walked us through it. Maybe I've got a little bit of advantage of being there, but it is a destination. It really is. It's not just a gun store with a range. It's everything that you described, and that shoot house for force on force training, I think, was one of the things that really stood out to me. Was when I heard, okay, we've got a shoot house, I thought, okay, well, the building's big enough for that. But when I saw that it was 2 stories and there's an upstairs and a downstairs and there were bedrooms and furniture and things like that, I was like, this is maybe the coolest thing I've ever seen. And it's just, it's amazing. So we're very lucky in the Nashville area to have you there. And I'm sure you have a ball working there.
Oh, I do. It's quite enjoyable. The police were, back when I trained them, there was a whole bunch of cops who love to come to shoot and love to do tactics, but they're kind of made to. They have to come. Mm-hmm. And the neat thing about training people at the current place I work is they want to come. They're looking to improve their life-saving skills or competitive shooting skills or whatever. So they, pay money and come on their own. So I still love teaching both groups there, though.
That's awesome. Well, maybe that's a good segue for me to tell people a little bit about you. So, if you don't mind, you have an amazing career background. So, is it okay if I tell the listeners a little bit about you and who you are and what your background is?
Sure.
Okay. Well, so folks, here's what you need to know in a nutshell about Mr. Allen, and I would just encourage you to go visit RoyalRangeUSA.com and check out Mr. Allen's page on their staff roster. It's going to go over stuff that I'm not going to have time to read. Bob, I think if I sat here and read your whole resume, we would be here for another 30 minutes. But I'm going to hit some of the high points that, at least to me, that were high points. So, Mark, Bob's a 34-year veteran of the Metro Nashville Police Department, and Metro Nashville is a very large organization as far as the PD goes. 21-year SWAT team instructor and lead instructor of firearms and defensive tactics for Metro's Police Academy. Bob, some of your credits in training include FBI Firearms Instructor School, ATF Officer Survival School. Of course, you had the NRA Firearms Instructor certification to your name. You've attended the Force Science Institute, Gun Sights, Pistol, Shotgun, and Rifle School, the Bill Rogers Tactical Shooting School, and most people wouldn't know that he's a local guy now, but former Army Master Sergeant Kyle Lamb's advanced pistol class. I think I got his rank right. I believe that's correct. Former Master Sergeant. Says that you also are a student and practitioner of Taekwondo, Jeet Kune Do, and Jiu Jitsu. That some of your responsibilities as an instructor while in law enforcement, including teaching on the topics of officer survival, use of force, dynamic confrontation, firearms, and defensive driving. And I think one of the things that was really interesting to me that is probably relevant to a lot of the civilians out there is that you also gave presentations on personal and office safety to corporate organizations and universities. And so I guess that leads me to a question. Are any of those things that you still do in your current role?
Yes. Yes. Well, the unfortunate things we've been seeing across the country in church shootings, for instance, that's one of the things that our business has gone up. I don't know how much, but it's gone up a ton. I'm teaching as much away from campus as I am at the range, it seems. So that's one of the things, yes, that goes on. And I've been to hotels, law firms, credit unions, and places like that. And we've discussed tactics for armed people in the business on defending against an active shooter or unarmed ways to solve an active shooter. And, if you look at our history here in Nashville, the past 2 we've had have been stopped by unarmed people. So we show individuals like churches where they don't carry or businesses where you can't, how to do that. So yeah, I still go do a lot of that and still get to teach currently the police. Like we have some coming here for 2018 in-service to our range. And, something I always love doing is making them safer if I can. And yeah, we still get to do quite a bit of that.
So I'm curious, out of all the various hats that you've worn, if you will, and roles that you've filled over the course of your lifetime, and this could be professional or personal, is there one of these roles that you're really most proud of?
Well, probably most proud of, I'm going to say two.
Okay.
So most proud of is raising two daughters who are on their own, both married now and doing real well. So that's the most proud. The other thing I'm quite proud of is getting to serve the city I live in for 35 years, and doing the thing I like doing. So those two are probably very tops on the list. Well,
thank you for both of those, but absolutely thank you for your service to the residents of Nashville. As a transplant from Kentucky myself, only been here for about 20 years. My wife was born and raised, and she tells me all the time, it's very rare to meet somebody in the Nashville area that was born and raised here. So thank you for doing that. That definitely is it's commendable, to say the least, to want to give back to society in that way, especially in such a dangerous occupation and increasingly hazardous for the men and women in blue. And Mark will, we absolutely, we love our police officers. So, well, Bob, suffice it to say then that you're a subject matter expert who's devoted a significant part of your life as both a student and a teacher of the use of defensive tools and methods. And now you're bringing that wealth of knowledge that you've gained over your career and the skill sets that you've accumulated to the civilian world to make people safer. So when we talked about getting together for this podcast, you said I would like to do an episode about training beyond getting a carry permit. And I hope that this is just the start of many conversations in the future with you. But let me just ask the question then. And Mark, by all means, jump in anytime you want to here. And if you've got questions, I know you're it looked like you were getting ready to make some notes yourself. But Bob, why should the armed citizen seek out training beyond just getting their handgun carry permit? And perhaps specifically, what sort of training should you start with? What do you recommend that they begin their journey with?
Well, the reason why, I'm going to kind of give you a driving example. It's what I usually tell in a permit class when I teach it on why they need training after this permit class. So I remember at least I got my driver's license at 16, and I thought I knew a lot about driving and thought I could handle myself in, certain situations. But I really hadn't driven in snow or slick roads or things of that nature. So we always kind of explain it like getting your driver's license at 16. Imagine yourself going down the backstretch at Daytona doing 220 miles an hour, and a wreck happens in front of you, and you haven't any idea about what to do and how to manage that and negotiate it without killing somebody in front of you or yourself. And we kind of equate that to, you get a Tennessee handgun permit, which is, fairly stringent, and it's a pretty good class. But imagine just taking that and sticking a gun in your belt in a holster and walking out in society and getting in a gunfight at 5 feet away. Wonder how well you would do. So, there's just a lot of things beyond the law and things you learn in the permit class that you need to practice. You need to be under stress when you practice it. You need to have somebody coaching you and watching you doing it and putting you under as much stress as possible so they can more or less stress inoculate you. So goodness forbid you do get into it on the street. You'll kind of have the mentality of, hey, I'm not wanting this, but I've been here, done that, so I feel okay.
You mentioned stress inoculation. As I was trying to think about things that we might talk about tonight, that was one of the notions that came to my mind, was that in my own conversations with carry permit holders that have only gone to get their permit and they've shot the qualifications for that, and maybe occasionally they go to the shooting range just to knock the rust off, that they're maybe missing that element of stress and something that would prepare them for the fight, if you will. Has that been your experience too? And maybe that's a segue into a question of what's something that people, when they first take a class with you beyond handgun carry permits, that they have an epiphany or they realize, I had no idea this was a thing?
Well, usually I'll give you a statistic. Like when they leave the permit class and they come to one of our first next level classes, and I don't really call it advanced because, advanced stuff is just doing the basics real well. It's just once they leave the permit class and try to come to that next class, we get about 13 or 14% of the permit people to take the next class. Once they take that first next level class, the rate is 60% that they'll take the next classes. So I think to answer your question, it's gosh, I didn't know what I didn't know. I had no idea that drawing this, shooting it, reloading it was all that. And how much better I would do if me and my family ever got attacked out in the world.
How easy is that Tennessee permit class to take in terms of classroom learning and proficiency on the range?
It's a really good class they've made here in Tennessee. They give all the instructors a PowerPoint that we all have to use, and it when we last got the information on it, it takes about 5.5 hours to teach it.
Okay.
We cover all the law. There's some pretty good videos in it that shows a home invasion, what you're supposed to do or what you could do legally. Some street robberies and things that happen in that. Some videos. So it's a good put together PowerPoint. It's really long, but it covers a lot of info. And then we give an exam after that, give a little review before the test. We give an exam. And then generally the students go to lunch, come back after everybody's passed the exam. And usually we have very few fail it. Then after the students come back from lunch, we'll usually put them into a ballistic room where we'll do about an hour or so's gun handling with empty firearms. We don't bring any bullets in or anything. Either they bring theirs or we loan them ours. And we watch their gun handling skills and, talk to them about grip, stance, trigger press, sight alignment, and all those things that they need to know to shoot well, just to pass this course. Once we feel they're safe and they all have it pretty well, we'll go shoot the qualification course, which, depending on the size of our class, could take anywhere from 40 minutes to, 2 hours, depending on how many students we have. Then generally we come back in, print them off a certificate, and they go on their merry way and get their permit. And after the class is over, is really the only time we can talk about all the other classes that we do. So, we get up and try to convince them to do something past their permit class. Hopefully they get it from us, but if not, take it somewhere. So this is just like getting your driver's license.
Mark, how does that compare to New Hampshire? Because admittedly, my experience is Kentucky first and then Tennessee second. So I don't know what it's like in other states, but is that pretty typical for you guys as well?
We don't require a permit in New Hampshire.
Really? So constitutional carry. I guess I should have known that.
It's constitutional carry. There is a concealment permit available.
Okay.
In order to get that, you go to your local police department.
Okay.
You fill out a 1-page photocopied form, give them a $10 bill, and they give you a piece of paper that's good for 4 years.
Okay. Well, I admit I didn't know, and I clearly didn't do my homework there.
It's got 3 references on it. They call your references. Small town, New Hampshire. Mine was delivered to my house by a patrolman.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I'm perplexed now because I was thinking my next question would be, how does the permit process and the little bit of quote unquote training that you get in that, how does that compare to what's practical for real life? And in your case, Mark, is there a shooting proficiency test in that at all? No.
Nothing. No.
Okay. Well, Bob, how about in Tennessee then? I'm going to guess that the assertion is that doesn't prepare you very much for practical real life encounters, right?
Yeah. Is the shooting portion of the test pass or fail?
It is. Yes. Yes. It's a 70% pass or fail, and it's pitifully easy. If they follow our instructions, they'll pass the course because it's not timed. It's not from the draw. It's all from what we call low ready for the table. And it's, 20 rounds at the 3-yard line. It's 20 rounds at the 5-yard line, and then 10 rounds at the 7. And the target is, quite a bit smaller than a Q target. I think it's the B29 target. So it's a 2 point in the center and then 1 point outside the center, and then 0 if they hit out in the white area. But it's an easy course, and I think the state wanted, if people went through this course and did all the classroom part at the beginning and then could hold a gun up, keep sights on target, and press the trigger effectively, you'd pass it, which most people do, unless they don't listen. So, no, it prepares you like 0 for defending yourself out in the world.
Right.
All it does is just get you state certified to carry in the 38 states that Tennessee is reciprocal with.
Okay. Well, I perhaps that's a lead into another question then. What important things are lacking in that class? And then where would that lead a student for their next level if they wanted to come in and take that next level training with you? What are the things that you're going to then pick up on and help them? I hate to use the term remedial because a lot of these folks just simply hadn't been exposed to it, period. So what is it that you teach them to begin to build on that foundation and give them something? So,
we have some of them that have, that leave the permit class, and we, kind of catch them after the class, which is the only time we can talk to them about the next level classes. And we say, hey, do you plan on carrying it? And if you do, how are you going to do it? What kind of holster are you going to wear? What kind of clothing? What gun you're going to run? Because in Tennessee, you can shoot a gun, but yet carry any other gun. So the one I qualify with, I don't have to carry. I can carry anything else. Once I just qualify with a 22, I can carry a 1911, a Glock 22, 40 caliber, whatever. So some of them honestly go, I'm not going to carry it. I just want the permit in case I ever do. But a vast majority of them do want to carry, and we kind of say we'd love for you to start here with us, and we have like a 5-level class called Learn to Carry. So we actually get them to come in. It's a 4-hour class. We get them to put on a holster on their strong side, a spare mag pouch on their non-dominant side, a good belt. And this is guys and girls, and a lot of the girls don't like wearing belts, but we try to get them to do that for this class. And we just work on the fundamentals of the draw stroke, how you get it up on target and how you make it back in the holster safely. We do all that training in the safe room. We're not firing bullets for probably an hour and a half-ish to make sure they're squared away. Then we take all that to the live fire range, and in our Learn to Carry 1 class, that's really all we do is make sure we can present the pistol well, hit the target from normal confrontational distances. And then class 2 builds on everything from there forward, and so does 3 and 4.
Are there any common misconceptions that people seem to have about the training that they got while getting their carry permit that they come into your next level class and you can just kind of see that light bulb click over their head, and it's like, oh, I had no idea. And I'll tell you, let me maybe throw a kind of lob a softball at you. You can't swing a dead cat on the internet without hearing somebody talk about, should I carry around in the chamber? So is that one of the things that comes up?
Yeah, I get asked that quite often.
Okay.
And, I've had private and semi-private students come in and go, well, I've been carrying around in the chamber. And we're like, why not? And a lot of them, like some police officers I've known in other cities, have not carried around in the chamber. And the reason is the police officers I'm talking about were worried about their defensive tactic skills. Like, well, if somebody snatches it from me, I don't want them shooting me with it. So our answer to that was, well, get a better holster and work on your defensive tactic skills. You, especially as a police officer, need to carry one in the chamber because time is never on your side because you're always responding to what somebody's doing. And it's really the same for our civilian world. I just did a Facebook video that we put on our Facebook page, and it showed the difference in time from drawing an empty chambered pistol. So the magazine's full, chamber's empty, and it's in my holster. And I'll hit the buzzer and do a draw where I had to rack the slide and fire a bullet. And it was close target. I just stuck it out and shot it one-handed. And it was like 1.17 seconds. So then with the chamber hot, the next time I did the same draw under the same time buzzer, and I got that in 0.77 seconds. So that almost 0.4 of a second, I think that math is right. Wonder how much, the question is, wonder how much you'd pay to have that much time on your side during a gunfight, because a lot can happen in that amount of time. And that's kind of what we tell people about. You need a round in the chamber. You're not going to have time to rack it. You're just not. Fights are over before that happens.
Is your experience that most people's apprehension about, and when I say that, I'm really thinking about the civilian, that their apprehension about carrying a round in the chamber, are they worried about the safety of the equipment? Do they think it's going to go off on its own? Or are they telling you that they're worried that somebody who shouldn't have access to that gun might get it, whether it's at home, a kid might, or that they might get in a scuffle and somebody might get their hands on it? What rationale are they giving you for not carrying one in the chamber?
Well, the ones I've heard of are mostly those who are already carried it in the holster and really hadn't had class on it. So they'll come in and go, "Hey, we want to take the new class on learn to carry." And we're like, "Great." And when we start discussing, the class and why they're there and what they want to learn and their expectations, they say, "Well, I've been carrying it. I just hadn't had a round in the chamber." And usually after we ask why, they say, "Well, I didn't feel safe about reholstering it," or "I didn't feel that the gun was safe enough." And then those seem to be the couple of reasons. And once we give them a lot of empty training, so the gun's empty, and they learn, "Hey, I can do this without putting my finger on the trigger and keeping it straight, and I can reholster it, even the appendix carry method. I can still do all that safely." Then when they leave, they feel so much more comfortable. I mean, they're like, "Well, I'm going to start carrying one in the chamber," which we're pleased to hear.
Right. Absolutely.
So I encounter that very issue on a regular basis, being a holster manufacturer. People saying, "Well, I don't want to have one in the chamber. What if it went off?" It's like, well, then it's just a quick conversation. It's like, we can sit this gun right here on this table, and it can sit there for years. It's never going to go off. You need to pull that trigger in order to get to go off, right? But the holster we designed fully encompasses the entire trigger guard. There's no way anything's going to get in there to obstruct it and, make it go off. And, time is not on your side in an encounter when you're going to need your gun. And the last thing you're going to want to worry about doing in the heat of the moment is trying to slide racked and get your sights back on target.
Well, Mark, let me ask you about your experiences up there. So New Hampshire being a constitutional carry state, the bar I'm gonna say is set a little bit low, and perhaps as it should be, if we really think about freedoms and rights and such. You hope that people exercise them responsibly and that they go become proficient in a thing, whatever it is, whether it's driving, safe manipulation of a firearm. What's the class draw like for people that? What are you seeing coming into your classes up there for people that want to learn more about it? What motivates?
For me, it's I find it to be pretty unfortunate because there's a couple of problems. There's arrogance that they don't need the training, so they're not going to do it. There's the money factor. They don't have the money. Or there's the money factor that they'd rather buy Gucci gear for their guns than pay for training.
Or more guns, I guess, yeah.
Or more guns.
Yeah.
And I have friends that just don't take classes. They know that I do. I have invited them to many. It's important to them. And these are guys that carry every day. And to each their own. But for me, I want to know, what's going to happen? What's this going to be like? What I need to prepare myself the best that I can, because I'm never going to rise to the occasion full of training. And that was going to be my next question for Bob. Like, what for the people that aren't coming back, like what do you find their excuses to be down there? I assume that it's probably similar to the issue here, but that was my next question on the list, actually.
Yeah, it's actually, Mark, time and money. I don't have enough time for it, or my money situation won't let me do it now. And we always kind of, weigh to them, well, everyone has priorities in their life, like eating right and staying healthy longer. You live longer. Learning how to defend yourself, whether it's empty-handed or with your firearm, may help in that endeavor too. So skip a meal or two out on the town and come take a class that really might benefit you and your family, whether it's a home invasion or a street robbery when you're walking out of a parking garage or any of those. And, if you set your priorities right, you can make time for the stuff that's important in life. And usually when we give them that little speech and they see the prices of our class, a lot of those tend to come back, which we're tickled about.
Yeah, you made a comment earlier about some of the recent events in Nashville, and we've had a couple of shootings, and we're getting to the point here where we probably ought to take a midpoint break and recognize some of the folks that help us produce the show. But can I throw out a suggestion that when we come back from break, Bob, really what I'm thinking is I'd like to know if you look at current events or recent events in the news, and perhaps the two Nashville shootings that have happened recently are those events, but is there anything that jumps out at you as this kind of training and insert class here would have made a huge difference in this situation? Can we talk about that perhaps when we come back?
Sure.
Okay.
Love to.
Okay. Fantastic. Folks, we're gonna take a break here and recognize our sponsors, but I just want to leave you with a thought. The world is not getting any safer, and I would encourage you that right now, use this break, start looking around at some of the training options in your town, and if you are in the Nashville area, I can certainly recommend that you swing over by Rural Range USA.com or swing over by their facilities and check out what classes they've offered. But we'll come back here in just a moment and we'll talk about recent events in the news and the things that Mr. Allen recommends as far as training that might have made a huge difference in those situations. And we'll be back here in just a moment. Please stay tuned.
Hey everyone, David here, and I want to take a moment to talk to you about how you can become part of the Shooters Nation. After the show, head over to www.shootersnation.com and check out our online community. Membership in the community is free, and it's a great way to connect with your fellow firearms enthusiasts and armed citizens, especially if you aren't keen on big social media platforms like Facebook. While you're there, also be sure to check out the Shooters Nation store, where you can order high-quality apparel, including hats and shirts, sporting the Shooters Nation logo. Our hats and shirts are embroidered right here in the USA in North Carolina and are a great way to show your love for the Shooters Nation podcast, your belief in and support of the Second Amendment, and are also a great way to trigger gun-grabbing hippies on your next trip to the grocery store. Of course, we also hope that you'll follow us on the major social networks like Facebook and Instagram as we continue to hold out against the forces that would love to see gun organizations pushed off of those platforms. We're not going to make it easy on them, and we hope that you'll join us as we keep sticking it to the man. And last but not least, if you like what you're hearing on the Shooters Nation podcast and would like to partner up with us, we would love to talk with you about becoming a corporate sponsor. If you sell goods or services of interest to gun owners, our audience would love to hear from you. Head over to shootersnation.com and send us a message.
Hey, folks, welcome back to the Shooters Nation podcast. Tonight, we're here with Mr. Bob Allen from the Royal Range Firearms Training Center here in Nashville, Tennessee. Bob is a career law enforcement officer, now retired, and he is teaching not only our men and women in blue, but also civilians how to make it home at the end of the night, if I were to paraphrase and just tie that up in a nice little bundle for you. But before we broke for break, Bob, we were talking about just recent events in the news, and I was asking if there's anything in particular that jumps out at you that says, this kind of training and insert class here would have made a huge difference in this situation. Is there anything like that just jumps out at you?
Yes, David, it is. Like, when Kyle Lamb and I were speaking the other day, and there have been many other trainers across the country say this, but we know there's really two things you need if you're going to defend yourself out in the world. And that's if you're the police or the military or you're a citizen walking the streets. One is you need to know how to operate that real firearm that you carry every day to protect you and your family with. You need to know all the idiosyncrasies about it, how to run it, how to reload it, how to fix a malfunction, how to do all the stuff with that particular firearm that you carry. And that's only on shooting that, mostly 2D target that's not moving or giving you a problem. So that's one thing you need to do. The other thing you have to do to be sure you can do it in real life is some sort of scenario-based, force-on-force, physical training that makes your heart rate go up like it is in real life. I know the events I've been in, as much as we practiced it and trained for it, my heart rate still went up. I hope less than it would have without the training, but it still went up some. And we managed to do okay. So that's called training that will stress inoculate you. It'll give you a vaccine so that when this does happen to you in the street, hope it never does, but if it does, you'll kind of have that mentality of, hey, I've been here, done that. So those two things are really mandatory. Learning how to shoot my real firearm that I carry all the time, and then being in some kind of scenario-based force-on-force training that simulates what would happen in real life. And I can give you a couple of examples of some private students I've had who I've worked with. For an example, one of them is a female who has 2 twin girls. And she said, my goal in my life is to see my girls, grow up, graduate from college. And at this age, the way things are going in the United States, I want to be able to protect them. So she came in and took some live firearms training. We talked about her carry methods and things like that. And she does real well on that. So she said, well, what's the next step? And I said, well, we need to do stuff like you do on a day-to-day basis. What do you do? She said, well, my fearful thing is being at the gas pumps with the 2 girls in the back of the car, or putting groceries in and trying to watch everything around me while I'm putting groceries and the kids in the car.
Right.
So in those particular events that she did day in and day out, we recreated that at our, I have a car that sits outside that we bring in and out for vehicle tactics. And I have a little doll from when my kids were young that I brought to the range to use as a little baby. So we set up a scenario-based training incident for her where she got to shoot at me if I did something that was worthy of me being shot for, like something she could use deadly force on me for.
Mm-hmm.
So we set up a scenario, gave her safety gear. I had a Sims pistol, and she did too. And it's really actually almost the same gun she carries in real life. And the scenario was I was just going to do something, and she had to either talk me away from the car or do something more. So I went up and tried to snatch her kid out of the car and kidnap it. And she did the appropriate thing and used deadly force on me. And actually, it was really good. I got 3 right in the torso.
Can you explain to the listeners what a semi-munitions pistol is and maybe what that feels like?
Yeah. So the guns that we use at our place they're Glock semi-munition pistols. So it's a true Glock lower receiver.
Okay.
And the thing that's different is the slide is different and the barrel is different, which makes it only available to shoot these paint pellets that go 450 feet a second. So you really know it when you get hit. It leaves a blood welt on you.
Oh boy.
We've all heard the saying that pain is a motivator. So you don't want to get hit with them. So you'll do things that you would do in real life. You try to, move away from the bullets or get behind cover. And the good thing it does for us in that training environment is it gets your heart rate up. On some of the people I've tested, they're close to 200 beats a minute on their heart rate.
Wow.
I put heart rate monitors on them and seen that. So she's done that training with us multiple times on different scenarios, from being robbed in a parking garage to being sexually assaulted at her house to snatching her kid up. And she says she feels so much more confident now that she walks around with her children than she ever did before she came to us.
That is amazing.
So I think that's the next step people need beyond just I know how to shoot my own firearm at a 2D non-moving target.
I'm wondering, do you think that you see guys like doing like workouts, like swinging a heavy hammer or lifting a kettlebell and running around a lap around the course to then grab the handgun and shoot? Do you think that does what the body needs to simulate that elevation of the heart rate and get your mind kind of not focused on your shooting? Do you think that serves a purpose, or do you think that does it justice to what it would be in a real life situation?
No. I think it does a purpose. I think it gets you conditioned and you can shoot with a elevated heart rate. Part of that's on working on slowing your heart rate down so you can make critical shots. But, we know mostly, at least from this part of the country, that our shootings are generally up close and personal. They're not, 15 yards away. People rob you, mug you, rape you right up on top of you. So all that lining my sights up and breathing deep and taking my time isn't going to happen, because there's not that time limit. There's not that time to give. They happen very quick, and usually you're on the receiving end. You're trying to play catch up. They're walking up on you with an edged weapon in their hand, and you get to see it when they get about 6 or 8 feet away from you. So then it's kind of go time. So no, I believe and I don't think I'm the only one to believe this. There's some other national trainers that would say the same, that the elevation of the heart rate you get from force-on-force training is different than your physical push-ups, running, sit-ups, chin-ups kind of heart rate.
Yeah. So Bob, as you were answering that for Mark, it made me think, have you had any students, past or present, that have actually been in a deadly force encounter after they've trained with you? And a companion question to that is, what did they tell you after the fact? What did they learn something in that encounter that they had no idea that it was going to be like before they got there?
Yes, I have. So all of these instances and students were in my police career. So when I was at the training division for almost 24 years, approximately 130 something students were involved in life and deathers on the street in the city of Nashville. And some of them were our SWAT team that I didn't really take into account their deadly force, use of the force, because I wanted the street officer, the detective, or a thing like that. So a lot of those particular individuals, a whole lot of them, I got to debrief because I was the head of that section that debriefed people about that. So I got to talk to them and say, hey, did you see your sights? Was your flashlight on? Did you shoot one-handed? Were you moving when you shot? What did you see? And all those kind of things. And almost to a person, male or female, because we had both use deadly force, they all said it was kind of like driving down the road, in a country road, and it's 6 o'clock a.m. in the morning, the sun's just coming up, and a squirrel runs in front of your car, and you just dodge it automatically. Most of them that I recall the debrief with said that, man, I don't remember drawing it. I don't remember breaking the restraints on my holster. It was just in my hand. It was firing when my life was on the line, and I was moving too, by the way, not standing stationary. And to a person, they all accredited the training they received from whoever was at the training academy then, that the live fire training that they got, being put under stress, and the trainers not letting them cheat. And what I mean by that is, police officers wear retention holsters where we snap it in because we fight more people than we'd ever shoot. And that's a good thing in the United States. But a lot of times people try to take our guns. So we wore retention holsters. So a lot of people who would want to cheat a little bit would undo their retention holster so they could do faster on the draw, because our timed courses for the qualification course were kind of quick.
Okay.
So as trainers, we wouldn't let them cheat. We'd say, hey, we're not starting till you snap that holster. And then once they snapped it, we'd get going.
Right.
Well, I had more than a few who were in close quarters battle confrontations inside of houses said, that saved my life. Y'all didn't let me cheat. Because if you'd let me cheat and it had been snapped that day that guy tried to kill me, I wouldn't have done so well. So a bunch of them credited their training of making their trainers toe the line, make them do what they're supposed to. And then the other part was that they'd been shot at with bullets that hurt before. And they knew what it was going to be like with that force-on-force training. And they knew what to do to get away from it, how to move, when to draw, what to say, not to stand still. So to a person almost, the ones I interviewed said, both kinds of those training, like we talked about in the first part of the show, both of those things helped them do well in the street and either save themselves or save another citizen in Nashville.
I have to ask myself, and I'm thinking about myself as a young mid 20-year-old just getting my carry permit in Kentucky, what I really thought I knew when I put that gun in a holster on my hip. And I think honestly, I didn't know anything. I probably had this idea that I had this implement that I could carry with me that could do a lot of harm, and maybe foolishly thought just the appearance of it would make the bad guy turn and run. But I think that maybe I, like a lot of concealed carry or just handgun carriers in the civilian world, thought that the fight would be well advertised in advance, that I would see it coming and that it would be very one-sided and that I would prevail, and hearing you describe that, you have professional law enforcement officers who have gone through some force on force training, and what they basically told you was, worst day of my life. I don't remember any of it, and muscle memory and subconscious training kept me alive.
Correct. Yes.
that
you don't have.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
You don't have time to think in those circumstances. The whole thing we'd hope is I'm situationally aware enough to see it coming. But crooks are good at disguising that. I mean, that's how they get up on you. So, everybody knows this. What you do in practice is what you do in the game. So if you got a good trainer who teaches you the right stuff and prepares you right for that really serious game that we're talking about, you should do well in that environment. You'll obviously do better than if you hadn't had any training at all. You really hadn't.
I think about, Mark, you've made the comment several times. You see people walking through the parking lot with their head in their cell phone. They're Facebooking, they're Twittering, they're whatever they're doing. And the world doesn't exist around them to the point that they'll trip over things. And I think if that's you, and if that resonates with you as a listener, or somebody that embodies that, maybe let them listen to this. And it's a key point that you don't get to pick when the fight is going to happen. The criminal, the predator, chooses that moment. The best you can do is be aware and be trained to know how to respond to that. Bob, it's interesting. I've been working through a book that I've mentioned a couple times on the podcast by a gentleman named Varg Freeborn, and he had an interview. He was doing a podcast with John Chappie Chapman, and Chappie is a career law enforcement, much like yourself. But Chappie said this. He said, non-exposure to violence leads to non-violent thinking. And it was such a strange comment, yet it was very key to the conversation that they were having. And it seemed like basically what he was saying was that if we don't test ourselves in controlled combative situations like sparring, if you're a practitioner of martial arts, or force on force training like what you guys offer for more advanced level students at Royal Range, that we're just kind of programming our subconscious mind to be numb to it, that we're not programming it to deal with violent situations. Does that seem true to you? Is that a fundamental truth from your experience, or am I off base there?
No, I think you're right on. Most of us want to go through life being nonviolent and not having any violence come upon us. But when it does, if you hadn't, played the game in your head and thought about what would happen and actually physically practiced it, whether it's empty hand, wrestling on the ground, defending yourself against strikes or punching somebody back in a controlled environment, or when we talk about the firearms part of force on force training, then I just don't know how you do well at it. And I don't think you will do near as well at it if you hadn't had that kind of training. It's that analogy of the driver's license and the car going 200 miles an hour.
Right.
It just kind of stress inoculates you. So you're in that mentality of, hey, I've been here before. I'm not scared to death. I've survived this in training, and this is just like the real world. So I know I can do it. One of the things we started doing at our range in Bellevue is we just started a mixed martial arts classes there, because a lot of these confrontations we see in the world end up physically first before they ever turn to deadly force situations. So if you can stop it physically, there may not be a need to use deadly force. Or sometimes when you're in places where you can't carry a firearm, because we know there are all those places, like the two we've discussed here in Nashville, the unfortunate incident that happened at our Waffle House and at a church in the Nashville area, where the people who were unarmed actually did some heroic things and took guns away from people who were murdering citizens. So, yeah, I think you need all that. Now, I obviously think you need to mentally play the game in your head. One of the things we do when we do our home invasion class is and we ask our permit people, so you got a permit now and you don't have to have one to have a gun in your home. The Castle Doctrine eliminates that. You can have a gun in your home, but if your husband's gone on a golf trip for 3 days, miss, do you know how to defend you and your children? Somebody kicks your door open at 2 a.m. And, usually you get the, no, I don't look. And the good thing is a lot of those come back. All of them don't. I wish they all would or would go somewhere.
Right.
But a lot of them just don't. And they need to be put in that environment and scared a little bit and succeed at it so they know, hey, I've been here. I can do that. I can protect me and the kids.
And I think that's kind of the ugly part of it, right? And the ugly question is to hold people accountable when you say, what would you do if you were put in this instance and you didn't have the training? Right? Like, yeah. Or what would you do if you decided not to carry your firearm that day? Because it wasn't comfortable. You didn't feel like wearing a belt. And there was an instance where you could have, should have, or would have liked to have had it to use it to save a family member, save an innocent bystander. Like, how are you going to live with yourself by making that choice? And it's the same as how you're going to live with yourself by not taking the training and learning what you're doing. You can make a bad situation worse by not knowing what you're doing with your gun in a bad encounter. That video was viral this week of that lady jerking that J-frame out of her purse and blasting that guy point blank range in I think it was in
Brazil, wasn't it, or something like that?
Rio.
Rio. Brazil. Yeah.
And if I rewound it and paused it and skipped it frame by frame forward, and the minute she pulled that trigger, there was an 8-year-old girl standing right behind that the guy she shot. And apparently this woman was law enforcement off duty. And like, that was not quarterbacking the hell out of it for my office chair up here in New Hampshire. You know what I mean? But come on, you had a mother and a little girl right like 3 feet behind this guy. Then she pulls out her 38 and pokes one in his chest. It's just like, man, like angles would have played, made a world of difference there just by shifting 5 degrees. She was pointed right at them. And, and that's just another instance. Like maybe I don't know. I've never been in a shooting. I don't know. But from looking at it, like maybe if she had more training, she could have done things a little bit differently to make that situation a little bit safer for the innocents that were right behind her. Like how would she have felt? How would she have lived with herself if she had missed and shot that little girl? It was close.
Yeah. Yeah. Bob, what does the additional training that you guys offer beyond the handgun carry permit, what does that do to prepare a civilian to deal with the chaotic and stressful, very dynamic situations, right? So I'm thinking about in a shooting, in a self-defense shooting, you've got to make good decisions about who needs to be shot and who doesn't. And then there's also bystanders involved, like Mark was describing in that video from Rio. And I'll be completely honest, I missed the fact that there was a mom and a daughter in that video. I was looking at how ugly that draw stroke was coming out of her purse or whatever. She kind of chicken winged that gun up into action. But what are you guys teaching people about, or how are you teaching them to deal with that stress and the dynamics of it and the chaos to still make good decisions?
So we do it both places. We do it in our live fire training, where unlike our learn to carry classes from 1 to 5 are just building on what the previous class had, and like learn to carries 3 and 4, we'll put judgmental targets up. So they'll walk through a doorway with their gun in their holster. They'll not be able to see what's downrange, and then they step in. There's different kinds of targets they have to evaluate and look at everybody's hands. And a lot of times, one of the things I do is set a deadly force target right as soon as they step in the door, and then right behind it is a good guy target, which doesn't have a firearm, is not involved in an altercation at all. And they have to do, like Mark said, they need to step some angles and cut some different angles to be sure they don't shoot through the bad guy and hit the innocent. Because as we know, you're responsible for that. Wherever it lands, that's on you. And usually there's some attorney sitting on top of it who will make sure you pay for that.
Right.
So we do that in our live fire portion on putting targets around, so they have to judgmentally pick the right one to shoot. And if they don't, we talk about it and go, hey, is this why you need a lawyer? And blah, blah, blah. Then advanced part of that, or the next part of that, is to do the same thing in force-on-force training where we get to use real people. The other benefit to, I think, the force-on-force or reality-based training, scenario-based training, is most people in life, unless they've been the police or military, have really never got to point a firearm at a live thinking person who may be pointing one back at them.
Right.
And it be a practice environment, not real life. So I've had students who couldn't press the trigger on another person, even though they knew it was okay to. So that's another topic we discussed in the permit class that I used to tell all the baby cops when they were becoming the real police, that, hey, you're going to get a gun in a month, or you permit holders got one now. But if you hadn't mentally made up your decision to some things in life are worth shooting people for, then you probably don't need a firearm carried with you. Because it's not the boogeyman, and the people you pointed at have already had one pointed at them. Trust me.
Yep.
That ain't the first time they've seen the end of a muzzle pointed at them, and it don't scare them. So if you hadn't made the mental process decision up that, hey, I'll shoot you for this, then you ought to put it up until you make that decision. Because we know from history, bad guys walk up and snatch it from you and then use it against you. So
and they don't have the conscience.
No, a lot of them don't. They really don't. And I want to jump back on one we talked about earlier, since I wrote me a note and said be sure to talk about it.
Sure.
In Tennessee, we have open and concealed carry.
Correct.
So when you get a permit here in Tennessee, it's either one. And we obviously teach at our place that, mainly because of what I just said, that it isn't the boogeyman, and it ain't going to scare most of the people. It only scares the gun haters. So you ought to keep that thing concealed. I mean, it's like not putting MMA stickers on my truck. That I don't want people knowing I'm doing anything with that. You want to kind of keep it secret till it's time to spring it on somebody. Mm-hmm. And the same would be about my carrying my pistol. I don't want people knowing that, and I try not to telegraph it with the clothes I wear or stickers on my truck or anything like that. So, yeah, sometimes that's a big dead giveaway. And if it's out in the open, personally, if I was a robber, that's the first thing I'd take when somebody turned their back. So I'd stick a gun to their head and take it, then take their money.
Right. Well, Mark made a point a while back. I think it was when we were talking about the Stoneman Douglas shooting, and an element of that applies here. That one of the dilemmas that our educators are facing, if they're even thinking about, or if their school systems and states are thinking about, should we arm teachers, is that they may be called upon to point a gun at a student or a former student who's there to do harm. And that second part, that there to do harm, doesn't really enter their thought process. What they might see in that moment is, there's a person that I know, or there's a person, if you're walking down the street, there's a person that looks like me. There's a person that I'm about to have to point a gun at. If this goes badly, can I do it? And that is it's a personal decision, I think, that everybody has to make. And like you said a moment ago, Bob, some things for some people, and I'm going to maybe recalibrate. Let me correct myself. Some things for everybody are worth shooting someone else for. It's just that not everybody has come to that determination. I think that maybe that's the way I want to describe that. And perhaps that's fine. May the odds forever be in your favor if you choose not to go down that path. But I want to get home to my family. I want my family to get home to me. That's why I choose to be armed. And hopefully, if ever called upon to do that, God forbid, that I would have the fortitude to go ahead and commit to it, so that the good people stay here with us, and the bad people, maybe they don't.
I would agree. And that the thing, like I discussed a minute ago on the scenario-based training, where we had a gentleman he said extensive firearms training, but not admittedly any force-on-force training. And when a home invader come in and actually pointed a force-on-force gun at him, he couldn't shoot back. I mean, I was the safety officer that said, shoot him, and he couldn't. So it was kind of something he found out about himself. And we gave him some retraining, and he does okay now. But in that moment, in that instant, he hadn't really made his mind up.
That reminds me of the story of the guy that took all the classes and was very faithful to his shot timer as creating urgency. And then he did his first force on force class, and he just kept getting shot. He kept pulling his gun. He'd get his gun out fast, but he was always waiting for the beep, right? Like he didn't know how to engage without that beep of his shot timer to jerk the pistol and to pull the trigger, because he's so pre-wired to just waiting for the beep, and that's when it was time to go.
That's an interesting point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bob,
you kind of do what you practice. Yeah.
Have you, is there anything like demographically that do younger students seem to have, and I'll explain why I'm going to ask this. Do younger students seem to have less hesitation when it comes time to actually go to work in a deadly force encounter in force on force training, right? But do they have less hesitation to go to work with that trigger and with that gun than older? And the reason I'm thinking about this is because, there's so much in the news bad about why, and I don't know that I necessarily want to go down the spunny trail too far, but there's a lot of bad news about video games pre-wiring kids to use a gun. And I'm curious though, in a good context, do the younger ones that have grown up with those kind of, first person shooter games, do they go to work quicker with that, or is there really no dynamic there?
I've read a lot of Dave Grossman stuff and just recently went to one of his classes, but I haven't seen that on our end.
Okay.
I think I see it all the time in the news on kids doing bad things, but generally our population of shooters is older than that. And no, I think it's about equal.
Okay.
Really. I don't see a drastic difference in that at all at our place.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned Dave Grossman, because I was trying, for the life of me, I couldn't remember who I'd read the study on, but I think that maybe he or someone else that he was in a conversation with, and it was an internet publication, that they're talking about how that the current generation of soldiers coming up has been exposed to some of these fundamentals, and video games are video games. They're not real life, but they in some ways they've made it easier to train them, and in other ways there's a lot of baggage that the instructors have to unpack and get rid of before they can really do something with them. But I don't know, the thought just occurred to me as you were talking about that I wondered if so. Thanks for entertaining that question. I don't know where I was really going with it other than that.
Well, I thought about video games a little bit earlier when he was talking about the shoot no shoot targets. Because I'm a 38-year-old and I have an Xbox. I don't play very often, but it was kind of a gift to kill time in the winter type of thing. And I played a little bit of Call of Duty. And in the very beginning opening stages of Call of Duty, you need to qualify that you can go out and fight the battles. And you do that by going through a shoot house class.
Oh, interesting.
Shoot targets. And you need to be able to go and clear a room and clear the shoot house. And you have to do it in a certain amount of time in order to proceed on. But it's legit no shoot targets will pop up. It'll be a woman or it'll be a bad guy. And you have to address the what's in their hand and so on and so forth. And another thing I wanted to mention about a shoot no shoot thing is Rich Graham, who is the guy that I know down in Florida, Training Fitness and Full Spectrum Warrior program and stuff like that. He does something pretty cool. Like he has steel targets set up. So when you breach the door, he will yell out a number like 17. So you need to find the target with a 9 and the 8 on it.
Oh, you got to do math.
So you got to do the math to find out what target you're shooting, or he'll have one.
I'm dead already.
He'll have one with math on it. He'll have one with red, white, and blue on it. He'll have one with purple and yellow on it, and he'll have one with green and red. And as soon as you breach the door, he says, LA Lakers.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? So it's getting your mind to think about colors. It's getting your mind to think about numbers. It's getting your mind to address that and still shoot quickly.
Huh.
So it was pretty neat.
Yeah, if it involves math, I'm already sunk. It's like solve this quadratic equation and then shoot the A or something. I'm dead. So.
Yeah, I'm out too. Yeah, I'd lose.
Yeah, that is really that is fascinating to know though. That I see what you're saying though. You're thinking beyond white target, red target or whatever, white target, black target, whatever the alternating colors are, you're now looking for a number, or you're doing something in your head to solve the problem. And that's from what I've heard
about trigger press, sight alignment, front, all of that.
Well, I guess maybe, I'm looking at the clock and it's hard to believe that we're already winding down on the top or the bottom of the next 45 minutes, however you want to look at it. But, maybe it's a way to kind of tie some of this together that, Mark, you said something about you've got to also deal with the fundamentals of sight alignment, trigger press, etc. Bob, let's just say that we've got a listener right now that's sitting there and he or she's thinking, okay, I got my carry permit. I bought a gun. I kind of grudgingly went into that, but now you've got my curiosity piqued, and I'm thinking that, okay, it makes sense. You've made a compelling argument that I need to go take, some other class. Maybe the fundamentals are the place to start next, or just to make sure that they get that sight alignment and trigger press and all that stuff done. But what beyond that? If I were to walk into your facility tomorrow and say, I listened to the podcast, and Mr. Allen, I'd like to take a class, what would you recommend me to start off with? Where would you have them start that journey?
It could be one of two ways, David. Either the Learn to Carry class 1, which covers draw stroke, marksmanship, sight alignment, trigger press, follow through, and reloads. The draw stroke specifically, because they're getting out of the holster and putting it back up. Just 4 hours worth of that. Or that same class done privately with one-on-one instruction, where you get a lot, obviously a lot more attention to you, so you can, so we can watch that better. So either one of those.
Is that one-on-one instruction? Is that what the female that you were talking about earlier? Is that a kind of a consultation type class that she got from you? Is that what we're talking about there?
Yes, it can be on anything. So, we, besides just doing firearms training, we do women's self-defense, taser classes, mixed martial arts classes. So some of my students have, younger guys, a lot of, and a few ladies have come in and wanted just self-defense techniques. So we start off with boxing and jiu-jitsu and things like that. And then generally we add the gun to it. How do I defend it if somebody tries to grab it? How do I shoot something this close that's touching me or grabbing me by the throat, and doing things like that? So we can kind of tailor to whatever their goal is to make the class what they need it to be.
Okay. Mark, I feel like we're kind of at the point where I want to ask, is there anything, one last question that you'd like to ask Mr. Allen before we start to conclude our episode?
Yeah, I got a couple.
Okay.
So like the shoot house stuff that you do at Royal Range, so it's all simunitions. Is there like prerequisites? I mean, can just any Joe off the street come in there and go jump in a shoot house class?
Generally, Mark, what we do is have we call it a home defense class. It teaches everybody how to defend their home. It's a 4-hour class. We take 10 students, and we'll give them a lot of training. And at the end of the class, we'll do like quite a few scenarios for them that involve their home and them being in it, whether it's watching TV, in the bed, sleep, or whatever. Now, if they want a particular situational event that they want to recreate, see how they do, like the example I used of the girl putting her kids in the car, we can do that too. And no, actually, they don't have to have any training prior to it. We can teach them that from. Yes, we do. Mm-hmm. In the live fire range and the force hunting force house, both do low light in either one of those.
Wow,
interesting.
Wish we had something like this in New Hampshire.
An interesting stat we have here from our PD officers when I interviewed most of them is that I think it was not more than 2, as excluding the SWAT officers involved in deadly force shootings. But as far as patrol and detectives and things like that go, if I recall, there were only 2 that actually used a flashlight during a shooting event. So that meant 120 something of them did not use a mounted handheld light.
That's interesting.
What that told us was there was enough ambient light, either in the home, out on the street, in the parking garage, that they didn't need to illuminate it that they could see that deadly force was needed by what was in the guy's hands. That is kind of interesting.
Yeah, that is. Mark, do you have any others there? Or?
Yeah. How many employees at the facility?
We have around 35 right now, and most of those are part-time employees. There are maybe 10 or 12 of us that are full-timers.
That's awesome. I super jealous. We have nothing like that in the state. Like, I don't know how many hours I'd have to drive. I think close. There was a place down in Connecticut called King 33, and it was a training facility, but it was a 360. So you could literally walk around room to room, live fire, drive vehicles inside the facility and shoot from the vehicle.
Oh, wow.
But I think that the guy was a veteran and then went back into contracting and closed it.
Huh.
But it was a super cool facility down in Connecticut. I never got the opportunity to go shoot there, though.
Well, you guys at Royal Range have got a really fantastic operation, and it's very unique. I would love to at some point have some of the other folks from the operation come on and talk to us about that, because I think just even the genesis of how that all came to be would be a fascinating discussion.
Well, thanks. I'd love for them to jump on too. I think I forgot to mention when I was describing the facility, just the size of it is 40,000 square feet.
Oh,
and
wow.
We use about every inch of it. We really do.
Oh, yeah. I've been fortunate enough to be by there, and if you're within driving distance, if you're coming through Nashville, they're right off of Interstate 40 on the west side of Nashville before you get into Nashville proper. So, it's just a quick hop off the interstate, and it is absolutely worth stopping in. And I hope people even consider doing like you'd said, and use it as a destination either for training or for just an event of some sort. I think that they would really enjoy it. We're lucky to have it here, and we're lucky to have people like you helping make the rest of us safer. It's just phenomenal. Bob, let me ask you kind of the same question I asked Mark before we conclude tonight. Is there anything that maybe we've missed that is just a key point that you would like to convey to our audience?
Yeah, maybe just two things, Dave. One being that most people think that confrontations are going to be further away. They'll see it coming. They'll have time to get their gun out, line their sights up, and press the trigger and do all that like we do on that 2D target in the live fire range. And I can tell you from being around a bunch of them and talking to a bunch more people who are in them that that's not true. It'll be up on you before you know it. And you may not get to extend your firearm at full arm's length because the person is so close. And a bunch of those officers I interviewed in those confrontations in the city, to a person, I don't remember hardly any of them saying, saw my sights clean as a bell. Just, they were clear as all get out. Don't remember people saying that. And the other thing that needs to happen during those confrontations, if they're going to be that close and they get up on us first, is the most important thing is being able to get that gun from where it's housed out and on target. Get it out, pointed at the person who's trying to do you or your family harm. And that only comes with practice and having the right trainer to show you how to get it out quickly and make the most efficient use of it. I think those two things need constantly pointing out to people that don't really know about confrontations in the world, how they happen.
I would think that is a very dynamic training environment that you offer that would help a person sort out whether their gear is really going to work for them or not. Because I see a lot of, and Mark, I think you probably, you're a student of holsters. I know you look at everything that's out there and you're trying to make your own products better and more practical, but I bet a lot of people choose a carry method that in reality is just not going to work very easily in a compromised situation.
I will tell you, if there's one thing that I've learned, and first of all, I'm just going to go ahead and admit that I'm kind of a gear fiend. Like, I see something new, I'm like, this is awesome, I need to have one.
Right.
And I get it. And then I think that this thing is great. This thing is great. I love this. Check out my new this. Check out my new this. So on and so forth. And then I take it to a class, and the wheels completely fall off. The product sucks. It doesn't work. It fails, or it just doesn't work with my system and how I work. Right.
Right.
But the only way you're going to know if what you have is going to work for you is by putting it to the test.
Yeah.
And take a class with it. I can't tell you how many rifle slings, how many holsters, how many mag carriers, how many AR mag carriers, how many red dot optics, how many tape switches for flashlights, how many, charging handles and mag releases and extended this. And I've tried thinking that it was the best thing and I needed to have it, only to find out that this is ridiculous and I wasted my money.
Yeah. I've probably kept Royal Range and other operations like them in the retail side, very, very well funded over the course of time, buying gear that's now in a box in my closet or something, So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, okay, well, I'm not a neophyte. I've done some classes. I feel like I'm pretty squared away. But you haven't taken a class with your carry gear to sort it out, you probably ought to look for somebody like Bob Allen that can help you in a classroom setting where it's safe to make mistakes, and making a mistake doesn't mean you don't get to go home to figure it out, make sure it really works for you. And it might be eye-opening. God knows I've got a holster box that's full of it's the holster graveyard. It's things that I've bought that that looks like a cool idea, and then you learn later that like small the back holsters, those are actually pretty terrible, because some fights you end up on your back, and worse yet, you injure yourself when you fall on the thing. So that's probably one of my first holsters I ever bought was a small the back holster, and that idea got thrown out pretty quick. So okay.
Hey, Dave, there is.
Yeah, sure. Go
there
ahead.
is one about the way you carry, and have you tested it? And I think that's a really good point that people need to do. So I want to give you an example of a guy who's become a friend. He's been a student for a while. His wife more so than him, but he's been coming to private classes. So he said, "Hey, in the winter months, I've been carrying my gun in my coat pocket. So when I get out of my car and head through this dangerous little area before I get into my work, I take it out of my holster and I put it in my coat pocket, and I walk with my hand on it in my coat pocket." And I went, "Well, that's okay. That's cool." I asked him, I said, "Have you ever shot it like that?" He went, "Well, no, I don't want to shoot a hole in my coat." So I said, "Well, here, I got 2 or 3 crappy ones. Let's put one on you in the live fire range and stick that gun in your pocket.
Oh, that's awesome.
And let's shoot the target."
Right.
Yeah. So he gets up there
Semi-auto.
He gets up there. Yeah, it's a semi. He gets up and fires it once, and it malfunctioned because the slide caught in the coat. So I got another coat out. We put it on. We tried it like 3 times, and he never got more than 1 shot off. And he left just as wide-eyed as you could imagine, thinking, golly, if that 1 shot didn't work, I'd have been killed.
You don't know what you don't know.
So that's true. He just changed that whole process, and now he don't carry any coat pocket anymore. So that point you made about testing that gear and trying it out in a real environment is true before your day happens, on the street.
I have no ego. I will tell you both, and everybody listening, I just learned something, because I wouldn't have even thought about the material inside your pocket clogging the action of a semi-auto where the slide is reciprocating. There's a good reason, if you're going to do it, to have a small wheel gun, a small
works
revolver.
Perfect for a J-frame.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. Hey,
yeah.
I learned something. Absolutely. Yeah.
Great.
That's great. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, and I've been shooting for a long while. I really would not have thought about that happening. So, and Mark, you knew, I was watching you on camera. You started nodding as the story went. You've been there, it sounds like. So, yeah.
Saw that soup sandwich coming.
Yeah. That's fun.
Well, he had, he really had no clue either. And he was betting his life on it that would work.
Yeah.
Because in this particular garage he's leaving, there's been a murder before. He just thought, I don't want it to be me. Now he runs it. He now runs it from his holster or carries a revolver in his pocket, one or the other.
Yeah. You just don't know what you don't know until you test it. And that could be your equipment, or it could be yourself, or it could even be your tactics, if you will. You just don't know what's going to work until you test it. And, Bob, you made a comment very, very early on in the conversation tonight that most people haven't shot against an armed person who's thinking about that as well. And it's one thing to square off against a target that's not thinking and it's not calculating and it's not trying to get the upper hand, but it's a totally different thing if it's a person. And a lot of these bad guys and bad women that are out there are predators. They've done this before. They're not amateurs. What's it like to square off against them? And unless you've done something a little bit more advanced and taken some training with somebody like you beyond the handgun carry permit, I would pose that you've started, you're on your way on the journey, but you need to do more. And they really ought to come seek out training from you or somebody like you near them. So
another thing I don't think we touched on, but I was pretty eye-opening to learn early in my defensive instruction training that I've taken is how much nobody practices shooting from retention or really close, because there's a term for it, like the within 21 feet somebody can get you by the time you draw your gun and get it on them. Isn't there something by there, Bob? Like, is it 21 feet? Is that the number?
Yeah, it used to be called the Tooler drill. A guy named Dennis Tooler come up with that, and it more or less said that if a person's walking towards you in a parking garage and at 7 yards, which is 21 feet, he decided to draw an edged weapon out of his pocket and run at you, that the average person, the average draw stroke, could get one shot into him about the time he stuck the knife into you.
Right.
That's how long it took. And the average person can cover 21 feet or 7 yards in just a little over a second and a half, which is what it takes the average person to get their pistol out.
Right.
So we did 2 tests like that at the range in front of a whole lot of people. And what we found out in 2 different tests, and this is just me picking somebody out of the crowd and going, hey, I want you to draw a pistol here and shoot the wall. And this guy's going to run at you. Well, it took them both 28 feet before they could get the gun out and fire one shot. So
go show you.
That's really,
sights aren't even important at that point.
That's just, it's just crazy how long it, and then in real life, there's that moment of puzzlement. Why is he running at me? What's that in his hand?
Right. Yeah.
So it's going to be even longer than that.
Yeah. Well, and that 21 feet is actually, it's a little bit further than people realize, especially if you consider walking through a shopping mall or walking along a sidewalk. The people that you're in proximity with are much closer than 21 feet. And 21 feet, and they're coming at you, that's actually a pretty good distance. So,
a couple of cars.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. Why do we have these really cool conversations at the end? It makes me want to go on for about another hour. Well, the beautiful thing about that is, Bob, we can have you back on again. And I hope that you've enjoyed it enough tonight that you would consider coming back on. And I think that we could do this every week and you could teach us something new every time. I know it. So I hope you've enjoyed it.
I've loved being on, and I hopefully pass some knowledge on to somebody who needed some help with it.
Yeah, definitely. Well,
get some more people training.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's I think our main goal. I mean, one of my main goals overall for the show is to get people out there and get them practice their firearm. And you're doing a couple things. You're getting to the range and you're getting to know your gun, but you're also learning and you're helping.
Well, you're learning about yourself. There's an old saying: adversity introduces a person to themselves. And in a situation like this, it's controlled adversity. At least the person that's pushing you and stressing you and fighting against you is actually, it's a person like Mr. Allen here who's actually rooting for you. They're on your side. They're not going to kill you. So, why not take advantage of that and get that kind of training when it's in a friendly setting and not, when the chips are all down on the table. So, Bob, thank you. I've really enjoyed it. And, I hope that our listeners, I think they're going to fall into one of several categories. Either they've got their permit and they've done a little bit of training and they've kind of wondered, should I do more? And I hope that this really whets their appetite and they go do it. They might also fall into the category of, like I said, I've got my permit. Isn't that enough? The answer to that's probably no, especially if you're going to carry that thing with you and you're counting on it to save your life at some point. But I really hope that this opened your eyes as the audience to why the carry permit is just the first step. You've opened the door into a new world. And I would say that by choosing to be armed, you've at least acknowledged that the world is a increasingly dangerous place. And sometimes it might be up to you and no one else as to whether or not you make it home. And so why not stack the deck in your favor by taking the training that you can, maybe forego buying that new pistol or taking that vacation or whatever, and instead use that money to send yourself or even your family members through a class like what Bob and Royal Range offer, so that you're putting some tools in that toolkit, so that God forbid if the day arises that you need them, they're there for you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
well put.
Thank you. I appreciate you being here. It was a lot of fun. Mark, is there anything tonight that really stood out to you in the conversation that maybe you hadn't thought of before?
It really made me think about why people aren't training.
Yeah.
And it really makes me like, okay, so why are they really not doing this?
Right.
And even examining, some people that I know that carry every day. Why aren't they paying for training? Why aren't they doing that?
Yeah.
And it makes me kind of like want to brainstorm about ways to open up these people's minds a little bit to try and get them to want to, you know what I mean? And it's, getting people to do what you want them to do is not necessarily my job. But the thing about that they're missing, I think, and at least for me, when I go to the range and I want to be good, and when I'm not doing good at something, it's frustrating.
Sure.
But there's no better feeling than when you're at the end of the day and you're shooting aces when you got there the day before and you weren't, to see the accomplishment and to know that you have improved, and that's a great feeling. Nobody likes doing things that they're uncomfortable with.
That's true.
That's true. Yeah.
They like doing what they can do well, especially in a forum of people around, right? In a class. But what I think a lot of people overlook is how good it feels that when you are doing something that yesterday you weren't doing well and today you're doing it really well, that feels really good.
Absolutely.
So keep that in mind. And by all means, people, like, if you can get into some training, even as basic it is. I mean, I shot over 8,000 rounds of 9mm last year and did over 110 hours of training between rifle and pistol last year. And I still take Pistol 101 every year.
Mm-hmm. It's a good thing to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Keep the basics.
Yep. Well, Bob, thanks again for being here. How can people connect with you after the show? And are there any classes that listeners in Tennessee or the surrounding area might want to take advantage of soon?
Yes, our website at royalrangeusa.com, if you click on the training tab, it brings up the calendar that we have all our classes on that calendar, and you can actually sign up for them online, sign the waiver, and come join us for any of our classes. We have classes most every day, and during the week is our easy time to get people in on privates or other classes. Our weekends are booming, actually. So the best way to get in contact with me is my email. It's B as in Bob, B Allen, ALLEN, at royalrangeusa.com. We'd love to hear from you.
Fantastic. Bob, thank you again. I really cannot express my appreciation enough. Mark, I think folks have gotten to know you by now in the shows, but how can folks connect with you after the show?
You can always email info@squaredawaycustoms.com or check out the website, squaredawaycustoms.com, if you need any holster gear. Oh, also something I wanted to mention tonight. Squared Away Customs is now a official Polymer 80 dealer with all Polymer 80 frames.
They've got that slick new one, the subcompact one, right?
I got the subcompact 2627.
Yeah.
We've got the compact 1923s, and we've got the full-size 1722s, all in stock. And right now, while supplies last on this opening order that we have, we are doing buy a Polymer 80 frame and get a holster for $20.
Awesome. That is very awesome.
Cool.
One of these days, I keep expecting that you're going to screw with me and you're going to give me the phone number for the local Domino's or something when I ask for people. How can they connect with you? So Yeah, if it's the local,
I just may as well give him Jordan's number.
Now I want a pizza. Yeah, that's right. We could give him Jordan's number. We did that last episode. It was all over the internet. That poor guy. Oh, me. Well, thanks again to Bob Allen from Royal Range Firearms Training Center here in Nashville, Tennessee, for joining us tonight. As he mentioned, you can check them out over at royalrangeusa.com. I also want to thank our Patreon members for continuing to support us. You guys are directly supporting the show and making future episodes possible. We really appreciate that. If that's not you and it sounds like a great idea to you, I wouldn't stop you. You could go over to shootersnation.com/donate and sign up for that. Also want to mention that shootersnation.com, if you go over to our website, you can sign up for our mailing list. It's our mail blast. And we send out announcements about upcoming shows, live events, special promotions, etc. So definitely sign up for that. That doesn't cost you anything. And we'll let you know when we're doing live streaming shows and things like that. Probably a good time to tell you about some of the stuff that's coming up. We have an episode coming up soon about church security, how to initiate or improve security at your place of worship. That one is going to be pretty exciting. The subject matter expert on that is a former Navy SEAL, and also it sounds like he got bored in the SEALs, and he transitioned into being a master EOD technician, a master bomb technician before he got out, and that's that's really cool and interesting. But and then we've also got some unarmed self-defense discussions coming up with a few Krav Maga instructors. So if you believe like we do that not every problem is a gun problem, you might want to tune in for that one. And no kidding, we're really going to do it. We've got a women's self-defense and gun topics conversation coming up soon. And that one might surprisingly be hosted by somebody other than me. So there you go. Dun, dun, dun. So we will see how that pans out. My wife might come on and host that one, or at least mostly host it. And I'm going to have to make her sign a disclaimer that says she won't tell everybody all the dirty secrets about me. So we'll see.
Mine is looking forward to it as well.
That's awesome. Do you think we can get her in here on that? Or
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
It just means I'll be on baby duty.
Yeah, no, I'm same. You know, that'll be fun. So, you know, it'll be fun to do that. I'll get run over by the kids, but yeah, that'll be neat. Yeah, we'll have to get double disclaimers in there somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know.
And it won't be a live show.
I'm gonna be really sad if like the listener metrics for that one are higher than any other episode that we've done.
Well, you know it's gonna be, right?
Yeah, it's
just going to.
That's the way it is. I don't need that kind of competition in my house. She's already a better shot than I am. I don't need that on top of it. Well, all right. Well, everybody, thank you.
Questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, fire over questions too. You can go to shootersnation.com/idea. There's a feedback form that you can fill out. Ask questions. Let us know what you want to hear about in the future. We also have an episode coming up that was a listener submitted question. They wanted to talk about, or us to talk about, traveling with a firearm. And now that we're on the cusp of summer and the vacation season, why the heck not? Some of you might want to know how to hide your Glock in your Yeti cooler with the NRA sticker on the outside of it. So, we'll bundle all that together in one neat, controversial subject.
I've got lots of good intel.
That's right. All right. Well, thank you guys again for being here with me tonight. Mark, thank you as always. Bob, it has been an extreme pleasure. I've really enjoyed it.
Same here. Thank you very much for having me.
Completely pleasure all ours on this side of the table. It's been fantastic. It's been a lot of fun getting to know you, and I hope that our listeners have enjoyed it as much as I have. With that, folks, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up tonight. We'll be releasing this on Sunday as always, and there's a chance that I might release this thing as a YouTube video. We'll see. I don't know. You're just going to be staring at me and Mark. That's not very exciting, even though Mark did shave his face. And so, I don't know, you're kind of growing that thing back in. It looks like it's sneaking back in there. The beard's coming back a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, sign back. Tune in next time and see if Mark's able to grow a beard and a full beard in a week. I think it's entirely possible. All right, everybody. That's it. We're gonna wrap it for tonight. Y'all come back again next time, and until then, please be safe out there. We'll talk to you again soon.
The preceding segment was a production of the Shooters Nation podcast. Visit us online at shootersnation.com.